Ukraine's attack on the Druzhba oil pipeline has directly infringed upon the interests of neighboring Eastern European countries such as Hungary, prompting Hungary to issue a stern warning. However, Zelensky's threat that the survival of this friendship depends on Hungary's attitude has further fueled Hungary's anger. In response, Hungary has hit back at Ukraine, stating that this incident will lead to long-term consequences, hinting that Ukraine may not have any chance of joining the EU anytime soon. Admittedly, relations between Hungary and Ukraine have long been tense, so it would not be surprising if Hungary vetoes Ukraine's EU accession bid. What makes the situation more serious for Ukraine, though, is that Poland, another key ally of Kiev, has also turned its back. According to Ukrainian media reports, Poland has also declared that the EU will never open its doors to Ukraine unless Ukraine admits fault on a historical issue. As Poland puts it, Ukraine must recognize the Volhynia massacre during World War II as a genocide. Without this acknowledgement, Ukraine will have no chance of joining the EU whatsoever. Poland has acknowledged that it needs to support Ukraine based on its own security interests, but this does not mean Poland has forgotten the Volhynia massacre. Back then, Ukrainian nationalists killed over 100,000 Poles, just as Ukrainian nationalists carried out a campaign of ethnic cleansing against ethnic Russians in the Donbass region before the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the methods used were unspeakably brutal. Poland is demanding that Ukraine admit its mistake, and also insists on the excavation of mass graves and the commemoration of the victims. Concurrently with this tough stance, reports have emerged that Polish President Andrzej Duda has vetoed a legal document on aiding Ukraine. Additionally, Duda has proposed a ban on symbols associated with Stepan Bandera. For instance, the red and black flag once used by the Ukrainian insurgent army led by Stepan Bandera, the so-called UIA, was precisely the main force behind the massacre of over 100,000 Poles back then. Poland's president's proposal has triggered panic in Ukraine, and Kiev has threatened to take countermeasures. In fact, Poland has long endured Ukraine's neo-Nazi issue in silence. However, out of the need to build anti-Russian sentiment, Poland always chose to stay quiet about Ukraine's problems. Occasionally, though, Poland would bring up the issue, especially regarding the Volhynia massacre, for which Poland has never forgiven Ukraine. Judging from Poland's current stance, this matter will not only linger unresolved but also become a major obstacle on Ukraine's path to EU accession. Kiev has only two choices: either agree to admit its mistake or remain stuck at the EU's door indefinitely. This is a fatal outcome, and it means Zelensky has been trapped in a predicament where enemies surround him on all sides. If both Hungary and Poland refuse to support Ukraine's EU accession, Ukraine's plan will almost be impossible to realize. What's more, the EU itself has never really been eager to accept Ukraine, much like NATO, which kept making grand promises at first, only for Trump of the US to later say Ukraine could not join. If the EU follows the same script, Ukraine will truly be completely abandoned by its Western allies. In fact, at a time when the Russia-Ukraine issue remains unresolved, it was unwise of Kiev to provoke other neighboring countries. And countries like Poland, which claim to fully support Ukraine, actually have their own hidden agendas. Especially as the Russia-Ukraine conflict moves toward an end, Poland will inevitably adjust its posture and take the opportunity to demand the maximum possible returns from Ukraine. This trend is largely driven by the US, which set a precedent for such behavior, and as a result, Ukraine now finds itself in a precarious, burning situation. No wonder Zelensky keeps urging Putin to negotiate a ceasefire. Ukraine is well aware that if the war continues, it will likely be squeezed dry by its so-called allies.